really, I mean, I'm sure all of us at Green Spirit would agree. We've got to reconnect with nature fast, or else, you know, the consequences for humanity, for all the species on Gaia, are just going to be so horrendous, or they already are, but it's going to get even worse. So, you know, the impulse behind Green Spirit is unbelievably important, and I share it 100%. And what I've discovered more recently in the last few years is something quite interesting. I've always been interested in Jung, of course, you know, since I was 20 or so, as well as being a scientist of sorts. But recently, working with my mentor here near Dartington, Julian David, a really marvelous mentor, I've realized that alchemy has a lot to offer, you know. So that's what I want to share with you. Okay, a little bit about. I'm calling it Gaia Alchemy because for me, what I'm experiencing in this work is a real interesting union of the science, all the science I've learned all my life, and now this approach to the soul, to the inner development of those qualities Hilary was mentioning in that quote, that alchemy brings you. Quite remarkable. So I just want to try and share something about that. So here we go. Let me see. I'm going to try and get my PowerPoint up. All right, no, first of all, I've got to share screen. Hang on. Now here you see the technology. There it is, share screen. I found it. Bear with me, folks. I'm a novice at this kind of thing. Here we are. Can you see the screen now, everybody? Yes? Okay. Yes. And you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. And if you have a question, well, hold on to questions and insights. I really want to know what you think about and what you experience yourselves, okay? With this Gaia Alchemy approach. It's because I'm experimenting with it. I want to see how it works for other folks. All right, so the word Gaia, we're familiar with, right? I mean, I don't think for Green Spirit folks, we need to go into much what Gaia is. You know what Gaia is, you know, really deeply. I came at Gaia from science originally. And so, you know, I've acquired some scientific understanding of Gaia. So that, for me, partly is Gaia, which I learned from my mentor, Lovelock, James Lovelock, you know. But also there's the mythological Gaia, the deeper Gaia, which I learned about from Jules Cashford and Jung and people like that, you know, the deeper Gaia, which we all feel. I mean, again, I don't need to speak of that with you guys. So for me, Gaia is a mixture of those two aspects, yeah? Now, alchemy, what about that? What's alchemy? Now that's a little bit trickier. I don't know if anyone in Green Spirit has been exploring alchemy. If so, I would really love to know what you've learned. But alchemy, here's an alchemist, you see, in the 16th century or something like that, or probably the 17th century. Look, first of all, just look at his face. Look at his face. Isn't that beautiful? He's got a real curiosity and humility about him. And he's heating something up with some bellows in the fire. Can you see? And what he's doing is he's asking nature, who are you? Who are you? And he's doing this before chemistry, before Descartes, before Galileo. If we can project ourselves into his mind, and in this case it's a man, but it can also be a woman. In fact, women are, I think, better at this. Anyway, what's he doing? Look, he's really inquiring very deeply into nature, but he has no concept of mechanism, science. He's probably not very good at maths, you know. And what's happening is the psyche of nature notices his honesty and his devotion and comes through and reveals things through the work, which are actually psychological, but he doesn't quite realize it. He thinks it's in the matter. And of course, in a sense, it is in the matter. And he's going through various alchemical operations to reach the philosopher's stone. Now, you see, here it gets rather interestingly deep, because my understanding is the only way for me to make sense of alchemy is if I allow the images of alchemy, and I'm going to show you an image in a minute, allow them to come from Gaia herself, or from nature herself. Let's say from Gaia, or from nature, physical nature. Physical nature has a psyche, and what that psyche is so intelligent, it's beyond our comprehension. And when we approach that psyche with humility and a real desire to learn and to serve like you were saying at the beginning, to serve and to develop compassion, to develop ourselves as Gaians, then that nature responds with images. And those images are in our culture, of course, these images come in many different forms in many different cultures. They're all, it's all one, it's a unity of, as Henry Bortoff would say, it's a kind of self-differencing of this one mysterious being or intelligence. I don't want to get too mystical about it. So what's happening here in alchemy is that intelligence of nature is giving us, is responding to our sincerity and our love and our desire to devote ourselves to Gaia through certain images. We don't invent them, we receive them. You see the shift. I'm sure you're familiar with this in GreenSpirit. I'm, you know, forgive me, I'm an infant. I'm just learning this. Many of you folks will be way advanced, but anyway, it's not a question of advanced or not. So you see what I mean? The images, the way to take it is, for me, the images have come from nature, and they're telling us how she works, and she's telling us two things: how everything in nature transforms. So the first lesson is, and you get this in Buddhism, you get this in, I mean, it's a classic thing, a Heraclitus, you know, transformation, transformation, transformation. Nature transforms all the time. She never stands still. She's always changing, and you are no different. You human beings, we human beings, we are no different. And this image here, the people who really worked on this and showed it more recently in our culture, who recovered alchemy for us and showed us what it is and how helpful it is for us, is of course Jung to begin with. Jung was an unbelievable person, and his student Marie-Louise von Franz. I just give you those names. You can have this presentation afterwards so you can research. This is the basic map of the psyche. You know, I don't want to go into this too much. We have our normal awareness, our ego. This is from Jung. Then we have our personal things we're not aware of, which screw us up, basically, you know, which stop us really seeing the truth of things. That's the complexes. Or I'm probably misrepresenting, forgive me. Then down here, if we can get through this clutter or this energy here and transform it, then we're in this realm of the archetypes, and that's where the alchemical images come from. Because when you make a conscious desire to connect with Gaia, you break through down into this realm, and there's a feedback to your ego. Oh, this must be the other, yeah. Okay, so here's the image I want to share with you today, the alchemical image. So let's just have a look at this. This is called the Azoth de Philosophe, by an alchemist called Basil Valentine. And can you see there are 7, it's a mandala basically, and there are 7 rays. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rays, and there's lots of images and symbols going on here. There's a lot to contemplate, so we can't do it all today. But I want to just focus on the key aspect, which are these 7 symbols, these 7 rays. See the man in the middle? He's a Gaian. He's a Gaian. For me, he's a Gaia alchemist. He's looking, but it's you. I mean, I'm sorry, it's a man, you know. I mean, but anyway, there were alchemical women as well. But it's a man. I would rather have a woman there myself, because anyway. So here are the 7 operations, and the idea is they operate within us when we want to transform into Gaian people in service to each other and to Gaia. And nature, everything in nature goes through these 7 stages, more or less. I mean, in some alchemical texts, you read 13, you read 20 stages. It doesn't matter. The point is there are stages. Yeah, there are stages in transformation. That's the point. So the first one, so what I'm trying to do with Gaia Alchemy, I'll try to show you, is first of all, is to combine how this applies to me personally, and really personally, very, very, very personally, and at the same time, how it applies to the transformations that Gaia, our planet, has gone through throughout geological time. You see, when I do that, I've been doing it for quite a while now as a practice, not as an intellectual thing, but as a practice. Wow, that's all I can say. Amazing. I had no idea. You know, I'm discovering things I had no idea about, and that's always a good thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's nourishing for the soul. You know, it nourishes me so much. I just can't believe it. So let's see if I can share some of it. So this ray is called calcination. This is when you, in psychologically, when you discover that you've got problems, you know, and you know that something's blocking you from feeling what life is really about, and you commit to doing something about it, and so you burn it with a gentle heat until you get a white ash. So what's left of that process in yourself is symbolized by nature through this image as a white ash. You see the symbol fire, burning, white ash. The planet is Saturn, and the metal is lead. It's really heavy, you know. All right, then the next one is dissolution here. So then you take that white ash and you dissolve it with water. Now, water is the unconscious, you see. So it's as if you give back what's left. There's something good in that white ash that's left from the calcination, and you give it to the unconscious. Here, take it, dissolve it, and you feel yourself dissolving, becoming more relaxed, you know, more thoughtful, more relaxed, more reflective. And then the next one is separation. That's the third one here. Oh, I forgot to mention the planet here is Jupiter. The metal is tin. These all have meanings in one's meditation, but anyway, we won't go into that now. The third one is separation, and that is Mars. You see, now that's interesting. So you need a certain Martian energy to separate, because you're still in the unconscious, but now you're beginning to discriminate things that you weren't aware of before. There's a sort of a separation of elements that are then going to come together in the fourth ray, conjunction, to form something really new. I would say a Gaian consciousness, maybe. There's a moment of Gaian consciousness. And can you see here, these two birds are bringing a crown up to heaven. And there's a word here saying rectificando, making everything right. So you realize what I did, what mistakes I've made in my life in the past, how I didn't have the insight to behave as I should have behaved in my case. Nothing terrible, mind you, but still, you know, we've all got that, right? Then the next one, the green ray, that's Venus. Now, can you see that's already, sorry, I forgot to mention, the fourth ray is often depicted as the sun, you know, and it's called conjunction. And so things that were separated now come together in this new way to give you insight into understanding yourself and understanding nature. Because remember, this is about nature. Nature has given us these images. It's not me. I'm receiving them. Now, this is a teaching. Yeah. And then the next one, the fifth, is fermentation. Look, Venus, fermentation. So now we take, often what's said is, I think, a child that's born in the conjunction, that's still not the end of it. You take that child and you have to sort of compost that and allow something new to come up, like a spirit to come up. You know what happens in fermentation. You take organic material, you let it rot, you let the microbes rot it, and they release carbon dioxide, a kind of spirit. But you see the image here, look, the two birds of spirit, or they've come down, they've roosted, they're now nesting, they're now sitting in the tree, and they've got an egg, you can't see it here. So these two birds, whatever these two birds mean for you, inwardly, they've settled and they've made an egg. And then the next one, next ray, which is the sixth ray, is distillation. So then you take that thing you've sort of understood, you know, and slippery as it is and how it comes and goes, but you take it and you recognize, I know, I see. And then I dedicate myself to distilling this, for the sake of all beings, for Gaia, for all her biodiversity. And in my case, I think of the rainforests in Costa Rica where I lived. I think of the African bush where I used to be. I think of the ocean, the coral reefs I've swum over, and I just feel this deep, deep devotion to it all, you know, really wanting for it all to be well with humans inside it. That's a kind of, for me, a sort of distillation. Then the seventh ray, the planet here is Mercury, of the distillation is Mercury, and it's also the metal. That's very interesting, as Mercury is very important in alchemy. Mercury is that sort of moment of when you're finally in Gaia really properly, as much as you can be. I would say that's Mercury, Mercurius. When you just, you know, in my case, I'm sitting in my Gaia place, And it just so utterly, you know what I'm talking about. Everyone in Green Spirits, you know this so well. You know, you're sitting in your beautiful spot in nature, in Gaia, and you just feel, you just understand how unbelievably miraculous this all is. And you give yourself to it. You know, you feel this great devotion. Then you move to the seventh ray, which is coagulation. And you're one with Gaia. You're one, you're in the Tao, you know, without being pretentious about it. I mean, I don't want to say, oh, look at me, I'm in the Tao. No, most of the time I'm not. But, you know, I'm learning how it is that one can taste that. Oh, and it's just wonderful when it happens. Then you have to coagulate again. Sorry, you have to burn even that, because that won't be pure. It's still got loads of dross in it. In my case, tons of bloody dross to go through. So then we go through it all over again and again and again and again, just like Gaia does. So that's applying it to me. See, very personal, you see. Now, what about her? Does she really go through these stages as well? Well, I think so. Here's a summary. Calcination, burning off dross. I won't go through it all, but you can have this for later, yeah? If you want to refer to this.
Thank you.
Now, yes, please. Yes.
No, just thank you for saying that we can see your slides later. That's great.
Yes. Now, I think it's a little bit early for questions, yeah? I just want to move into, that was very psychological. Now let's go into Gaia. Now, I want to apply this, the Azoth, we call it the Azoth, to the history of Gaia over time. You can apply it to various aspects, you can apply it at all levels, I suspect, to the quantum level, everywhere, without getting too fixed on it. That's the problem. We can explore whether we can apply it. That's a more scientific attitude, rather than just adopting it because it sounds good. We must always be critical, otherwise we end up with sort of isms and things. Anyway, here's the history of the Earth from the beginning of Gaia, before Gaia, 4 billion years ago. Look at this evolutionary trajectory. And this is what we do in the deep time walk that Ian mentioned. Look at that. Now, this is the development of Gaia, you see. I mean, there's a lot going on here that we know from the science. This is all science. It's fantastic that we've discovered this story. No other species has ever known this. And we must give this back to Gaia. I think Gaia wants to know this from us. That's what she wants from us. She wants to know this from us. Here's another way of showing this. You know, you've seen this. The huge length of time, basically, when there are only single-celled organisms, and how recently do we have multicellular organisms? Okay, so let's try and apply Gaia, the alchemical transformation. Well, let's explore. Sorry, I don't want to say apply. Let's explore. Let's explore together. And when you have your talk, it'd be good for you to, you know, take this critically, okay? But of course, don't chuck the baby out with the bathwater either. Calcination. This is the beginning of the Earth, you see, when she was just formed after a supernova exploded and created all the heavy matter in the nearby universe. And that heavy matter, some of it coalesced to form in front the Earth and the moon behind. Doesn't that look like calcination or not? Well, it looks pretty like calcination to me. I mean, it's not the only kind of calcination in Gaia. I mean, it's all, our metabolism is a kind of calcination. The fact that we're making body heat, there's a calcination going on there, you see. But this is a back in time, you know, the dramatic calcination of Gaia. Yeah, you can contemplate that, and to me, it makes a sort of sense. It somehow, it relates to me, and it's a science, and it relates, and it's very interesting to contemplate. There's another image of it. You know, those meteorites are bringing in good things that are going to be needed for life. You see, you can take this. This is an image from nature too, an alchemical image. Okay, then there's another place where calcination happens in the modern Earth and has been going on for about maybe 2,500 million years, plate tectonics. See, look at that. You see this ocean crust is being pushed down and it's being burned. This is more like our psychological calcination. It's more slower. You're pushed down. You're the ocean sediment. And we are together. We get pushed down, and an area of high temperatures melting happens. And then the rock, you see, can you feel how it's also somehow applies to us? This is more psychological, slow, it's slow. This is granite, this rock, and it forms the continents. And then we get volcanoes emitting carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, which of course then interacts with the biosphere and returns CO2 to the atmosphere. If it weren't for this process, the CO2 would be removed by life in a million years, which is nothing. And there'd be no CO2 left, you see. So that's also a sort of very interesting kind of calcination. And of course, there are other calcinations. Well, there are extinctions involved with some of the calcinations as well. A lot of species extinctions. This is time along here. That's now. That's 540 million years ago. The wider the bar, the more species, the more fossils there were. And you see when you get these moments when there's a decrease in fossil number, that's a mass extinction. So is that a kind of calcination as well on a different level? You know, there's no actual fire, but you're losing species. Although often we know that these extinctions have been associated with intense volcanic activity, which is calcination, you see. So it leads to extinction. That's not to say anything good about the current extinction, of course not. That's not something we should be doing. Okay, now dissolution. Well, look, that's dissolution now. Okay, the second ray, yeah. Here's the water arrives on Gaia, sent in by, we think, some ice meteors 1,000 kilometers across from the asteroid belt, because Jupiter and Saturn's orbits were changed because of the chaotic interactions, gravitational interactions between the planets in the early solar system. Jupiter and Saturn move further out from the sun, and in the process, that gravitational shift flings huge masses of ice from the asteroid belt towards the inner planets. And a few of them, most of them hit the sun, disappear in a puff of steam. But maybe 5 or 6 hit the Earth, 5 or 6 hit Venus, 5 or 6 hit Mars, and we have water. And the water doesn't just sit there, it starts dissolving, because things, you know, water is the most amazing solvent. It dissolves things, and it starts dissolving the rock. The very rock that's been produced by calcination, that rock is now being dissolved by the water. Isn't that, you see, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's really beautiful when you really ponder this. I think there's something in this. All right, separation is next. Well, that's when separation, that's when these things that are being dissolved out of the rock by the water, phosphorus atoms, oxygen atoms, nitrogen atoms, they're free in the water, and they think to themselves, wow, look at this. We've got freedom to get together in different ways. And it's very rare to find such freedom anywhere in the universe, because the temperature is just right. You know, it's a nice temperature for these chemical reactions to happen, or chemical interactions, I should say, between these chemical animate beings. So they start forming, look, I mean, don't have to be technical about it, but look at this sort of really beautiful complex molecule. Look at that. Every little bend is a carbon atom, which we don't show you because it gets too messy. But we see all the other atoms, oxygen atoms. Look at this. There's a phosphorus in the middle there with 4 oxygens, and that oxygen is linked to a carbon chain. And this starts making membranes. It spontaneously forms membranes. Wow. So you see this, well, now we're getting ahead of ourselves, because that's actually a conjunction now. Yeah, that's a conjunction, you see. The separation is when we get, here they are, look, this is a separation. We get these very basic components, hydrogen cyanide, ammonia, this one, H2CO, bicarbonate, carbon-containing, oxygen-containing molecule. They start into, they're very simple, they've been dissolved out of the rock. So that's the separation. And then they start coagulating themselves into more and more complex form. One strand of this, there's 3 strands. One strand becomes a cell, will become the cell membrane. This is conjunction now. Another strand becomes the DNA, the genetic material. Another strand becomes the proteins. And they all interact with each other, and they form, eventually, they get together to form life, which is the ultimate coagulation. So that's conjunction, conjunction. That's conjunction. Separation, going through to conjunction. What do you think? I mean, I'm very impressed by this, I must say. I really am. Then, look what happens. You get to the point where these 3 separate conjunctions, right, let's say, they form a new conjunction. And that conjunction is here, and it's called life. Look what it does. Watch this. Look at that. We're going to dwell on conjunction because it's so amazing that this happens in Gaia. And look at that. That's a bacteria. These are bacterial cells, of course, dividing. Speed it up, but nevertheless, they do it jolly fast. I mean, that's starting from molecules, atoms, that was separated from the rock in the dissolution, the rock that was formed during the calcination. If this is conjunction in nature, what is conjunction? What is conjunction? What is the experience of conjunction from a Gaia alchemy point of view? Then it goes even further. It goes even further. Once you get these bacteria, that's not the end of the conjunction. You would have thought that's amazing in itself to produce living beings like this in the conjunction. Then they start eating each other, of course, but then we get another special kind of conjunction in which the one that was eating, it doesn't dissolve the one that's eaten, but actually incorporates it into itself, and they become a new kind, they start talking to each other. I mean, you've got no idea how complex that has to be for that integration of these 2 different bacterial forms. The conjunction, in other words, the communication involved in this conjunction is mind-boggling. I don't think we'll ever understand it. So complex. And they start living inside each other, and the one that's eaten provides oxygen. Sorry, the one that's eaten uses oxygen to burn up food molecules, which the digester has digested. And this way, both cells get a huge amount of energy. And then they can develop into a whole new kind of cell called the eukaryotic cell, which makes up us, the plants, the algae, the fungi, etc. Isn't that amazing that's conjunction in Gaia? Wow, that's very powerful. I mean, I think one just has to contemplate these things and see what comes to one. It's very meaningful, it's full of meaning. This is what happens. This is conjunction. We're in Gaia. And we are doing this in order to serve Gaia. We're approaching this like this, in this way, with alchemy, with the alchemical image in mind. Not because we want to be clever and become professors at university, not because we want to make lots of money, because we love Gaia. And we know that somehow this way is going to make us love her more. Because we're unifying 2 sides of ourselves, the intellect and the intuition, or you could say the unconscious, or alchemically speaking, the sun, the intellect, and the moon. The moon, the dream world, the world of image, the world that nature gives us these images. And when the intellect recognizes that, you get the birth of Mercurius. You get this beautiful feeling of integration. And well, here's just a picture of that. It's called endosymbiosis. And this is, of course, Lynn Margulis, who had taught at the college so many times. I mean, she taught me this. Boy, was I lucky. May she be blessed in heaven where she is now to have taught me. I mean, couldn't have learnt it from anyone better. It's absolutely beautiful, this. You see how this one bacterium engulfs other kinds of bacteria, and you get mitochondria and chloroplasts. I mean, this is conjunction. Look at that. Can you feel you sort of feel the relationship that must be going on? And then somehow in myself, I feel the relationship between my sun and my moon. That becomes a sort of conjunction in some way, you know, and I feel a sort of blessing. Ah, yes, something real, there's something, it's a blessing. Thank you so much. Something real is happening here. It's not just all my fantasy, this is real. Look at this. This is just a picture of a living cell, a eukaryotic cell. This is one of those creatures that resulted from that union of the two bacteria. It's a single-celled eukaryote. Eukaryote means a cell with a nucleus. Look at that. It's amazing. The thing's alive. It's alive, and it's sentient and doing all sorts of things. I mean, we could go on about it. Here's one of my favorite microorganisms. Actually, you can see this one with your naked eye, but it's single-celled. Stentor, look at that. Reaching, feeling, look at those antennae, look. You see, it's like a trumpet. Can you see it? Look, the beautiful swirls. See those lovely swirls? Look at that. It's beating water into itself and eating these smaller creatures here. Oh, I love Stentor. I haven't seen Stentor for a while. I hope this summer I can find Stentor again. This is Euglena, just to show you again. This is a photosynthetic one. This is all conjunction. It's amazing. Amazing. I mean, I think to myself, this all came out of a molten ball of rock. Through this alchemy, this is what nature does, transformation. But you would never have thought, you know, that the molten ball of rock would produce this, of course, which is also us. We've come out of it too. And then these complex, I won't go into this, is photosynthesis, oxygen producing photosynthesis. Is just to show you how unbelievable, I've studied this to some extent, unbelievable biochemical level of interaction. Wow. I mean, so complex and so beautifully integrated. It puts our whole economic system to shame. It puts us to shame in the way we try and organize ourselves, like with Boris Johnson, a complete mess. Sorry, but I'm getting political now, sorry. You know, with the virus, oh God, no way, that doesn't happen in photosynthesis. It's all perfectly done and deeply efficient. I'm sorry if I've offended anyone. Sorry, forgive me. And we get these amazing structures like this, you know, these beautiful, this is inside the chloroplast that does the photosynthesis. Look, this was once a free living bacterium with a gunk inside here, with no differentiation in here, apart from a loop of DNA. Look at it now, it's formed itself, this thing has formed itself into these space age looking stacks of, you know, a photosynthetic pigment or membranes on which the photosynthetic pigment sits. I mean, it's just unbelievably creative. Doesn't that look like a sort of the future of humanity energy generating station? Well, it is actually. That's what it is. And look at this. This is where the reaction happens. I just want to show you the mind-boggling complexity of it. These are just massive molecules. And there's this is the water splitting complex. It's unbelievably complex. This is the molecule that does, one of the molecules that does the photosynthesis, just one of them. And there's just, you see the green, that's the chlorophyll, and there's carbon atom. These are proteins, I think, these ones, that hold the structure together. Oh, God, I mean, it's just mind-boggling. Now, just a strange little aside. I know we have to stop soon. We've got about 20 minutes, haven't we? Which should be about right. An interesting aside. Okay, now I don't know how much to read into this. This is just for your amusement, I think. This is if we take that molecule I showed you, and we look at this bit here, the center bit, where the water is split, which is incredibly important, you know, because that's what oxygenic photosynthesis does. It takes water, living beings photosynthesize, take water, and they use the energy of the sun to split the water into oxygen and hydrogen. That's very, very difficult to do. That's a process of separation, by the way, but that's for another time. That molecule that does that looks like this, okay? From a certain angle and stripping away various other atoms. So you might say, okay, well, but nevertheless, you know, it's not manipulating the image or the data. It's actually just stripping away certain bits of it until this is revealed, okay? This shape. Now, you may have caught a glimpse of what I was going to show you. We look at it though. I mean, okay, I'm not reading too much into this. I just find this amazing that it's rather like this alchemical image. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, oh, I don't know what. I just find it very interesting in some way that if I let my intellect just drop for a little while and I just contemplate that, how very interesting that the shape of that molecule in the center of the water splitting complex in photosynthesis, how interesting that it's actually rather like the alchemical rebis, which is the symbol for a Gaia consciousness person. Yeah, there's something there. There's something there, because without this molecule, we couldn't have a Gaian consciousness. I mean, we couldn't have a human Gaian consciousness, and I think Gaia needs our consciousness very badly, right? Well, that's why our purpose, I think, is to be conscious of Gaia. It's as simple as that. That's why we're here, to be conscious of Gaia as much as we can. So it's an interesting, you could say, synchronistic. You have to go more into your intuitive mind to appreciate that. Okay, fermentation. That was all conjunction, right? So with conjunction, we've got life. Let's say the very first living cells, and then the bacteria, or they weren't the first, but they were soon after the first. And then we go to the eukaryotes, the two forms of bacteria or three forms of bacteria start living together. And then we get this new cell called eukaryotic cell, which is us and the other multicellular beings and protozoa. So that's all conjunction. Okay, now let's ferment. Now we have an ecosystem all over the planet. And when the bacteria reach the point that they've got oxygenic photosynthesis, that's the birth of Gaia. That's Gaia. Because now the bacteria are having an influence on the planet on a planetary scale. They're taking huge amounts of carbon dioxide from out of the atmosphere through photosynthesis, which is H2O plus CO2 gives sugar plus energy, right? So they're taking huge amounts of CO2 out of the atmosphere. Can you imagine over the whole surface ocean? They're just sucking it out. And that's making the earth go cold, 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 cold. And the whole earth could freeze over into a snowball. It's happened, a couple of times. But it didn't happen this time because down at the bottom of the ocean, there were fermenting bacteria. And these fermenting bacteria, they kind of feasted on the dead bodies of the photosynthesizers, sinking down towards them from the surface of the ocean, these ones down at the bottom. They feasted on those bodies. They're like sort of necrophiliac. And they release carbon dioxide and methane into the water, and it bubbles up, pops into the atmosphere, and restores the greenhouse effect and stops the whole planet from freezing over. Wow. And of course, James Lovelock, my teacher, he made a mathematical model of these two. He's such a genius, old Lovelock, really. Honestly, I had to just pause and say, just extraordinary he is. Anyway, he made a mathematical model of these two ecosystems. No one ever dreamt of doing this before. And he found you get emergent temperature regulation of the planet for over long periods of geological time. You see, that's fermentation. And we start getting cycles. You see, the ecological cycles start to happen. Now we've got organisms over the whole planet. Gaia is born and cycles start to develop. That's fermentation. The Gaia's fermenting herself. She's connecting the phosphorus with the nitrogen, with the sulfur, with the oxygen. You could make a song about it, I suppose. Like, the one about my bones connect to my knee bone and whatnot. you could make a song like that. Maybe GreenSpirit should try making that sort of song. I don't know, but you see, can you get the feeling? The fermentation seems to me is when over the whole of Gaia, networks build up, relationships start clicking, working together, cycling the nitrogen, cycling the phosphorus, cycling the oxygen, chanops of the 6 major elements: carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur, chanops. The organisms start moving those, and they get better and better at regulating the temperature. And I suppose this comes to distillation. Can you feel in myself, and I contemplate that? So I'm out in my Gaia place, in my jungle, and I'm contemplating this. what happens in me is I start feeling this, I start feeling the reality of these connections all over the planet right now, you know, how it was before we disturbed it. Not right now, sorry. How it was before we disturbed her. And then I sink into and that doesn't happen all the time, but into a wonderful sense of well-being. Oh, just fantastic. Okay, and then distillation. Well, you just keep working on it. This is from a scientific paper by, it's very ironic, by Ford Doolittle, a brilliant scientist, who was very, very critical of Gaia in the early days, of the science of Gaia, because he said, oh, come on, Lovelock, just come off it, will you? I mean, look, the organisms are selfish. How are they going to do things for the good of the planet? It's just impossible. They can't, because they're selfish. So any organism that does something good for the planet at its own expense will be taken advantage of by a cheat that takes advantage of the benefit that the other one has done without any cost. And so they'll have more energy to make offspring, and they'll swamp out the altruists. That's classic neo-Darwinist thinking. And Doolittle fired that at Lovelock, and it was very difficult. It caused a lot of, well, it's a fair criticism. And then Lovelock invented Daisy World. But then, now look, Doolittle in 2014, I couldn't believe this. He's thought of a way in which natural selection on selfish individuals can indeed lead to Gaia. Wow. I mean, it's a great example in science of how science progresses, I must say, you know. For him to be able to do that, I want to write to him actually and congratulate. Anyway, the idea is you get these ecosystems, each of these lines is an ecosystem, time goes up here, each of these is an ecosystem, and it's just poddling along. The ones that just have single dashes don't change, and eventually they go extinct because, you know, they affect the environment in the wrong way, or they can't hack it basically, so they disappear. The ones where there's a star is where there's a kind of new network, a new innovative network is distilled by the whole network initially. It distills itself, and there's a star. It's like a flash of consciousness on an ecosystem level, I would say. Although, of course, I'd be criticized very heavily for being deeply flaky by my scientific colleagues, but tough. And then that develops, you see. It's broader now. That band is broader, and it's not dashed. It's more able to regulate, and it's distilling itself. And then there's another innovation, and it gets better and better. This is like a distillation process. Yeah, so Gaia, until we started wrecking her, my God, she'd reached the most unbelievable level of distillation. And I think for me, what I do here is I think of pristine Gaia. By pristine, I mean, how long ago? I mean Holocene Gaia, you know? Say at the end of the last ice age, just after the end of the last ice age. Maybe 13,000 years ago. All that history that she's had, which we explore in the Deep Time Walk. We try to experience it. You know, 13,000 years is only the last 13 centimeters in a walk of 4,600 meters, or 4.6 billion millimeters, I think. You know, the last 13 centimeters. Incredible. But pristine, I mean, there's a great book called Green History of the World by Clive Ponting. It's worth reading, but it makes you weep because it tells you how unbelievably rich it all was, you know, before we messed it all up. And finally, I'm just nearly finished now. Finally, coagulation. That's us. This is Hundertwasser. I really love his paintings. So I don't know. I mean, please remember, I don't know for sure. I can only tell you my experience, okay? Please, I mean, we must all, like Jung said, we must be individuals and must find our own experience. For me, the coagulation it involves me personally. Maybe it's a reward from Gaia for making all this effort, you know, all this effort, like sort of trying to figure this about myself. And I mean, what is my shadow? What is my You know, what do I have to calcine and Gaia? Working like all this, but with the alchemical images, always with the alchemical images, using them, allow them to be my guide. Then I'm already in touch with nature. I'm already in touch with Gaia. The minute I allow them to be my guide, I'm already connected to Gaia. And the images are now definitely going to help me because I've got the right attitude. I've lost that intellectual criticism, which isn't helpful here. I've lost it. I can see what it is. I can see how it's unhelpful. It's one of the things that has to be calcined, you know, in me anyway. And then I am in Gaia. And I receive a reward. I receive a blessing. Beautiful. It might be the way a raven might come at that moment and just fly across the sky in a certain way. And I just feel this, you know, we all know this in Green Spirit. You feel this tremendous, mysterious connection and you feel blessed. Or maybe a bullfinch comes to the top of a tree at a certain moment and sings a little song, a male bullfinch, and you realize, oh, really, the world is that connected. You feel so, you know, it won't last. Well, in my case, I know it'll go away. I can't hold it as long as I would like to hold it. But I know even trying to hold it is a problem. So I let it go and I say, all right, I've got more work to do, back to calcination. But then I'm always working with it in relation to the science of Gaia. I'm never letting the science go either. Because I think Gaia needs our she needs to know what we know about herself. You know, we are here to tell her what we humans, can tell her about herself. She needs us to tell her this, amongst other stories, all the myths, all the stories, all the images of all the cultures. But from us, Westerners, or from me, or I don't know, I think from Western culture, it seems that one of the things she needs, you know, humbly from us to offer her in all humility, with no hubris about how clever we are to have discovered this, just with all humility, is to give her the knowledge of her story revealed by science, because it has an objective, factual reality to it, which she needs to balance out all the myths and all the images, which have a psychological, factual reality, but the science has a physical, factual reality. Then she feels happy when we do that, and we have the reward of coagulation, and then we start again. Okay, well, I think that's all I wanted to say, really. Well, not quite. I just wanted to say how wonderful it is to share this with Green Spirit, because I know that you will understand this very deeply. And being able to share it with you like this, which I wouldn't normally do, I wouldn't normally go quite so deep. I mean, I've gone as deep as I possibly can in myself to give this to you. And I'm so grateful that you were able to, you know, you've allowed that, because it helps me, it helps us all, I hope. So thank you. I'll just play a little bit of music to end again. Let me stop share so you can see. There we are. This is a cuatro from Venezuela. You know, I had the great blessing to be born in South America, in Venezuela, where this beautiful instrument comes from the plains of Venezuela, where I was also, when I was very young, I was a research assistant scientist, research ecologist assistant, very humble, and with the Smithsonian Institution, in this wild, wild country in Venezuela called the Llanos. This is the instrument of the Llanos, and it's the music of the Llanos. el río, con tu corazón elegante y tu pico amarillo que cuando te vi volando con tanta gracia y elegancia, mi corazón se abrió a la grandeza de nuestra madre tierra. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Stephan. Thank you for the music, but also thank you so much for your talk. I found it incredibly exciting, and I love to see your passion as well for the story. I particularly liked the bit when you were describing the journey of the Earth through dissolution and through separation and conjunction. And I loved your excitement at the view of the cells combining. It was lovely. And if it's all right with you, it would be nice to take some questions from the audience.
I'd love that. Yes, really love that. What do you all make of it? Let me know. I really want to know what you made of it.
Can I ask you a question just to start off? And you were talking about us needing to give Gaia our understanding, our knowledge. Is that the same as when Brian Swim says we are the universe becoming conscious of itself?
Yes. That's nice. Yes. Wait. Yes, that's right. It is.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Yes, I think so. That's good. Thank you very much.
I can actually see everybody's faces. So if you want to ask a question, you could just go like this. And I'm going to ask Ian first because he's got his hand up. If you could unmute yourself, Ian, and then.
Yes, thank you, Stephan, for a very interesting talk. I love combination of ideas, and that's the Gaian principle of the psychology and the science. That's so important and so beautiful. Just stepping outside a little bit, you said, and I can quite understand it, that the educational establishments may not be as receptive to these ideas of combining psyche and science, which is so important. And that's very much, I think, one of the things that I think in GreenSpirit we try and do. What's your feeling about the whole educational establishment? I'm talking now the broader educational establishment. Is it changing slowly? Are people more open to this kind of psychological as well as science combinations and so on? Or actually is there a lot of inertia and stuckness? And is there a long way to go? What's your sense of that?
That's a great question. No, I think it's changing pretty quickly, actually. Okay. From little, well, I have contact with Plymouth University. They're wonderful. I mean, they're very, very, very open, really great. They've been very supportive of Schumacher College and the work we do. They're wonderful. And I hear that there are other places in academia that are also beginning to dissolve. You know, they're going into a dissolving. So I think it's happening, and I think this is a good time to be doing this kind of thing because the young people really like it. I mean, the young people who come to Schumacher College, you know, I'm trying this out with them. And they love it. I mean, they love it. It just works so well for them. This next time I'm going to try it again on our postgraduate programs, particularly the MSc in Holistic Science that I've been involved with for, you know, since 1998 with Brian Goodwin. I'm going to try this again. And the university accredits that, you know. So I think it's happening, and there's the University of Lampeter in Wales. I think that's supported by His Royal Highness Prince Charles. I think, if I remember correctly, and that's also happening. It's happening, but we need to, of course, it needs to happen more and faster, more widely, and whether it'll make any difference given the speed of the changes that we're facing in the climate and in the biosphere, I don't know.
Thank you. Lovely answer. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Thank you for the question.
Are there other questions? Gwen, would you like to unmute yourself? And thank you.
I feel a bit shell-shocked, actually. But I've really loved it, and I've loved your enthusiasm. And yes, so But one question has just popped up into my mind, or maybe it's asking you for your affirmation. Maybe I want to be right about this, but I'm thinking you have referenced this process to Gaia and to our internal psyche. I'm thinking maybe it works for any group that you can see growing and changing.
Yes.
I'm just interested in your opinion.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Gwen. You probably, from what the feeling I get from GreenSpirit, which I've been, very slightly involved with, my feeling in GreenSpirit is you've all reached a fine state of distillation. Really nice. I mean, the love you have for each other and the friendship and the wisdom, it's distillation. And I'm sure you all go out there in your gardens and you have terrific moments of coagulation. So yeah, of course it works in groups. And you're I'm not just flattering you, I can feel it even through the internet. It's amazing, isn't it? You're a group, finally, you're an example of what a group should be like. I mean, you're really well distilled. You're all alchemists. Well, I'm labeling you, and I'm sorry. I'm just being a bit, theatrical, I suppose.
Is that Phil or Helena's hand?
Need to unmute.
Hi. It's Phil's hand.
Hello.
I have started a second career, having been in environmental work for 35 years as an artist, because I wanted a different way to come at the same set of issues. And one of the things I find when I'm making is that I become in the present or in the now, or there's no future, there's no past, and time, it either stops or it races. You just have no sense of the time. And I wonder, a lot of the world religions have these moments of presence or being in the present. And it sounds to me as if what you're describing in yourself is that feeling or that condition. But what I was really struck by was that in your talk about evolution and the processes have gone out, it's been true of that process as well. Always been in the present.
That's it. Well done. That's lovely. That's lovely, yeah. That's right. Well, I mean, that's it. That's lovely. you can see I'm speechless now, aren't I? Yes, that's it. I mean, that's exactly right. Amazing, isn't it? That moment of that presence is there in bacteria right now. They're doing it right now. And the trees and everything is all doing it now. I mean, it's only us Westerners who feel so disconnected from it quite a lot of the time. Speaking of myself, But you're right. That's the thing. It's not just us. It's the whole universe. To sound grandiose and all that, but the whole universe is doing it. Of course, it's all one great present moment. In physics, from the little I understand of physics, time doesn't exist in the way. There's nothing like what we think it is. It's more like eternity. Apparently, I mean, I've been trying to read Ravelli. I must try and finish him. So that's it. I think it's right what you're saying. Absolutely. Thank you very much for that.
Mary Jo and then Judy Nichols.
Stephan.
Yes. Oh, hello.
I loved what you said, and I come from a slightly Jungian background, so it was fantastic.
Oh, good. I thought you might. Yeah.
Say a little bit more about I live in Clapham Junction with no beautiful garden or anything around me, but I'm very, very interested in the individual soul work that we can do to bring Gaia more into our souls and the soul of the world in the sense of the light and the shadow, which is within our souls, and how we work with that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that wasn't the question I thought you were going to ask. How interesting. I thought you were going to ask about how do you connect with Gaia in the city, but you didn't ask about that at all.
No, I can do that to some extent, but
Can you?
I'm really
So
interested in,
sorry, beg your pardon. Just repeat the question again.
I'm interested if you could say a little bit more about how we can do our individual soul work to bring the process of the unity, if you like, of Gaia forward, because I feel there's so much fragmentation at the moment.
Yeah. Oh, that's a difficult question. I mean, I'm sure you know better than me as a Jungian that it's a. Oh,
I'm only a little bit Jungian.
Well, no, I'm not sure about that. But anyway, I think, well, to put it alchemically, it's bringing the sun and the moon together.
Yeah.
And so then, okay, then I take the image of sun, which from alchemy, which has come from nature. What does sun mean to me? And how can the alchemical images help me discover what my sun is, the sun? Well, it's my intellect. It's that sort of, that probing curiosity that we have as human beings, and our ability to sift through facts and be very logical, look for patterns in a sort of scientific sort of way. Now, for me, anyway, that's my sun. And my moon, what's that? Oh, well then, here I'm so lucky to speak Spanish, I have to tell you. Oh, yeah. And to read Lorca in Spanish. And to sing, I'm reading Alchemy in Spanish right now. This is Atalanta Fugiens in Spanish, which is my mother tongue, Oh, it's so beautiful. And then that's my moon, my soulfulness, my poetic side, my feminine, there's love of dreams, paying attention to my dreams, to feeling the meaning in dreams, feeling the meaning in synchronicities, which my son says, oh, what a complete load of rubbish. So I bring the moon and the sun together. There's actually an image I had just this morning when I was speaking with you. It's a bit fierce. It's of the sun and the moon clubbing a dragon.
Oh, wow.
Right, so I was reading it just before we started, actually. Let's see if I can find it. I probably can't find it. This is an Atalanta Fugiens, a very famous series of alchemical images. The clubbing a dragon, it's coming up here. Clubbing a dragon, so that, well, what is the dragon? The sun and the moon are clubbing a dragon. What does that mean, the sun and the moon clubbing a dragon? Well, the dragon, in this case, is the bit of me. I can't find it, I'm sorry. It's the bit of me that, and I know this all too well in myself, that is dull and leaden and looks at the grey skies and thinks, oh, crikey, how horrible. And, all that in myself, which stops me from feeling connection, in myself, that has to be gently clubbed to death by the sun and the moon together. The sun has one club, the moon has the other club. And they club it to death, and then they very gently take the body and they burn it, they calcine it, and they put the white ash that results through the whole process.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, because if you think that's lovely, then it means it's real.
Yeah, I do.
It's not just me, it's real, isn't it?
No, it's inside. I can take that inside.
Yeah, you see, isn't that lovely that we can recognize that with each other? That's amazing.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Judy Nichols, you had a question. Can you unmute, Judy?
Yeah, done it.
Oh, well done. Oh, what a lovely painting. Did you paint that in the background?
Yes.
Wow. Is that the Yorkshire Dales or somewhere like that?
Thank you. Yes, it is. Yes. Thank you. I have loved what you said. Thank you. I've loved what you said. And my mind has been able to assimilate the second part more easily than the first part. I want you to give the first part of the talk again now, the alchemy bit. Now you've gone through the bit that I can actually understand and assimilate and be part of, and I can see it all in that, and I shall have to attend to my notes or look at the first part of your talk if we're allowed to see it again, to be able to take in the alchemy part.
Okay, so the bit you get is the science part, is it?
Yes.
Okay, so the alchemy part is a more personal part?
Yes, but because it's not language that I'm necessarily accustomed to.
Okay.
But I've loved it all. I need to look at I wished I'd heard it the other way round.
I see. Oh, okay. Well, what can I say?
No, you can't. It isn't a question and you don't need to answer it.
All right.
I'd also like to pick up on what Phil said, that the whole process that you've described, the scientific part of the process that you've described, I need to sit with that, because I recognise that as a creative process, very much so. So, you know, what you see on the wall, the processes that I go through in doing that, I can relate to that very much.
Oh, that's very interesting. Are you still painting landscapes?
Yes, that's quite recent.
Is it? What sort of rock is that? It's not granite, is it?
No, it's one of the Yoredale layers.
It's
hard
limestone. Limestone.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
But don't let's start talking about me. I'm sure there are people want to talk.
This is very interesting. I think when you're painting the limestone landscape, you know, when you're doing it again next time, I'm sure you're really feeling the age of the rock and how it's been formed and the cycles it's part of, right? The cycles. You're feeling all that, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's see, what can we do? So what you could do, if you wanted, you know, is take the Azov image, which I can send you, and take it with you when you're painting the landscape, and try to feel, let the landscape tell you, let it talk to you through each. Right, but try through each of the rays. What's it telling me? What's the landscape telling me? Offer the image to the landscape and say, look, I bring this image came from you. It came from you. Thank you for this image. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, this guy called Stephan Harding, he says that it might be possible if I bring this image back to you, and we start conversing with the image. What might I learn? What more might I learn? What more might you reveal to me, which I can put into my painting in honor of you?
Exactly. I need to sit with it.
Yes.
Especially having heard the second half, I need to sit with the first half again. Okay.
The first half was very personal. So, I mean, I don't know how you're going to do it. I can't tell you, but it's about, for me, it's about my own relationship, because I'm here, you know. I can't be outside myself like I was taught to be as a scientist. I don't want to be outside myself. I can't, if I try to be outside myself like I was taught to be. Oh, you're this objective observer, you go into the forest and you collect numbers, you measure, but you're not really there, you're like a robot. No. So I'm deeply involved. My whole psyche is deeply involved. My transformation is Gaia's transformation. It's, you know, it's not egocentric. It can be, of course, it sounds egocentric and Totnesian, New Agey, sorry. It's not. I mean, it can become that. You have to be very careful. Just like you have to be careful not to be too rational with the scientific side. You've got to be very careful on the moon side as well. You see what I mean? It takes a lot of discrimination. It's not easy to discriminate. But that's all I can offer you. You know, try it. It may give you something. It may not give you something.
The whole talk has given me something, and I'll sit with it and work with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much indeed.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Chris Johnson has a hand raised.
Yes, first of all, Stephan, yes, I will join the plaudits for an absolutely wonderful talk.
Thank you.
And it's good to see you again. You probably wouldn't remember me. I actually went on the deep time walk along the coastal path in Devon when I attended a Charles Eisenstein course there at Schumacher.
Right. When was
5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an inspirational course that I attended then, and that got me into looking into alchemy, actually. And that alchemy has come up in quite a lot of my work in the last few years, and there are a number of books now, people writing books covering this new way, well, it's actually an old way of mapping, of letting people have a map to the expression of consciousness in the physical realm, if you get what I'm saying.
Oh yes, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason for that it does that is because it is drawing together the spiritual or consciousness, if you like, with the physical realm, with the practical, objective physical realm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm involved with the Scientific and Medical Network, which is another organization you were talking about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
that is making inroads into bringing together the scientific and the spiritual worlds. And there are a number of initiatives by the Scientific and Medical Network coming up and that have been going on during this period of lockdown, which has been a very interesting psychological period for most of us to go within and start identifying who they are and finding ways in which we can find out exactly who we are. Because that is, in fact, also what was mentioned in all of this is Gaia is trying to find out who she is by our feedback to her, as you were talking about. We feed back to her so that she begins to understand what she is all about and who she is in the physical realm. All of which is probably going off at a rather mystical tangent, but I'd just like to reiterate that there are a great number of different organizations. The University of Durham, for example, in their psychology department, is now beginning to look at alternative ways of looking at psychology. They are very much into the teachings of Jung.
Really? At the University of Durham? That was my first university.
Yeah, it would be.
Do you know who it is? Can you send me some names of people there?
I could probably come up with those for you. Yes, not off the top
I'd really
of
like
my
that. I'd really like that because that'd be interesting for me, especially because it's Durham.
Yeah,
I struggled like hell at Durham. I didn't like doing zoology at Durham. It was very, very difficult. I shouldn't say that in a recording, though, should I?
No,
and I'm very grateful to Durham University. Of course I am, but I'm so pleased to hear that.
Yes, the daughter of the program director at Scientific and Medical Network went to Durham, and that's David Lorimer.
I know David Lorimer.
Yeah, David Lorimer asked me, because I'd gone to the University of London to do psychology, and he asked me, do you know of any other universities that take a different approach to psychology, a bit more broad, taking in the spirituality of the individual, as it were? I recommended Roehampton as one that we're looking into that, and also he ended up finding for his daughter Durham, because Durham were opening up their psychology department on a broader scale.
Gosh, that's very meaningful to me, you know.
Hmm.
I mean, it's deeply, I feel that, you know, this sense of meaning that comes upon you sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
I just got one of those moments. As soon as you told me that, I got this moment of, Wow, that's significant for me personally.
Good.
It's a synchronicity. So thank you very much. That's really, really interesting. Very interesting. I shall follow that up.
Yes. I won't. I'll let somebody else.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. And thanks, Stephan. Is there anyone else that wants to ask a question? Helena.
Hi, Stephan, and hi, everybody. And I remember, Stephan, you came to talk to GreenSpirit maybe 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
it's lovely that we have this community that keeps these conversations going. And I had two questions, Stephan. I think you're absolutely right. I teach undergraduates, and I think there would be a great interest in what you're doing. I teach sustainable development and the UN SDGs. And I'd encourage you, if you could, if you are able to put something maybe on YouTube, because I loved the way you did the history and the personal, the history of Gaia with the personal. And I think, you know, it's very tough for our young people at the moment, extremely tough. And I think you would help them with that history of Gaia to feel the goodness, you know, what is good about the world is what you were teaching. And they don't necessarily know that story. So I would really encourage you to think about putting it out there, because I think our young people need it.
Thank you. Why not? Can we not put this recording on? I mean, the talk bit of it. Could we, and some selected questions. Can we not do that? Can we do that for GreenSpirit?
Yeah, we're going to explore that.
I think that would be good, because I can't do better than what I just did, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah. And Stephan, thank you. And a second question is, Stephan, I've been thinking quite a lot about Black Lives Matter and anti-racism, and I wondered if you have joined those that strand of thinking with your work on Gaia or with your work on alchemy.
Well, not much, but I mean, the thing is, racism is exactly linked to the destruction of nature, because we're racist towards other species because they're not humans. It's the same thing, only extended out to other species. Oh, that's just a blackbird. It's the same impulse, isn't it? It's the same thing. Racism. It's racism. Well, that's against other species. It's a form of racism, because we think they're a different race to us. Well, they're not really. I mean, race is a weird, strange word. I don't like it. It's not a biological word. It was dropped in biology a long time ago. So we're all, you know this, of course, as Aldo Leopold said, we are plain members of the biotic community. We can't be racist to a bacterium, or we can't be racist, even one that's trying to kill us. It's just doing what it does, or even a virus is trying to kill us. So racism, the impulse extends beyond the human into Gaia, and that's why we destroy Gaia.
Yeah, thank you, Stephan. And I think your way of contemplating Gaia maybe is a help for contemplating how we can remove racism from our thinking. So thank you.
Ah, that's interesting. I see.
Thanks,
That's
Helena.
interesting. That's very interesting. Hang, wait a minute. So you're saying if we cultivate a love of others, non-human species, that's a way of curing racism.
Yeah.
One way to. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. That's very, very interesting. Of course, I think you're right.
Liz you had your hand up, Liz.
Yes, I'm here. Yes. Just a question I want to ask. Thank you so much. I'd like to echo what everybody else has said about wonderful talk. I love the slides of the cells and the sentient nature of those single cell creatures you showed. It was absolutely wonderful. Just a point I want to ask about. We've touched on how we can help this process, the alchemic process of the earth, by telling the earth's story and helping Gaia to be conscious of herself. And I'm just wondering, we've touched on a few things in the questions so far, but what would you say, how and what would you say would be the greatest contribution we could make to the to the ongoing story of Gaia and the process repeating itself, because the cycle goes on and on, as you said. What else can we do in furthering this consciousness of Gaia?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, what comes to me in my mind is we have to learn to live Gaian lives. You know, it's our lifestyle, and it comes down to lifestyle. Like another one of my teachers have mentioned Arne, you know, Arne Ness, Arne. He says lifestyle, you've got to, it's not good enough, he says. Well, he didn't say it like this, I'm being very crude, but it's not enough just to feel these things. You have to live your life according to it, to what you've experienced. Now, like us, you know, we just got this immense barn of a house, and we've got 3 acres of land and some chickens, and we can start to make this land as biodiverse as we can, as Gaian as we can. We can make ourselves as Gaian as we can. We can make this land as much of a Gaian paradise as we can by living simply, you know, and really thinking about how we're living. That's how I would try. Now I've been given this opportunity to have this place. You know, that's what I can do in my life. I can just protect this little piece of land and make it happy, make the Gaia in it come out as much as I can. It's already pretty Gaian. I mean, there's not much to be done, but you know, and then, well, we know all this. You know, we think about consumption. We do all we can to consume less. All those things we know so well. We push for renewable energy, less consumption, more consciousness, etc., etc. So we try to live it in our daily life. I mean, when you can say, you're talking about presence, you know, when you're doing your work in your art. Well, I can't say I do. I can't do this all the time. I'm not. You know, but I wish I could just be washing the dishes and just feeling that incredible creativity. I mean, incredible presence just in the way the water comes out of the tap and the way it's water, you know, just really appreciate it. Even just for a few seconds, if I can just appreciate that just for a few seconds, then already I'm living a simple life, a Gaian life. And I'm saying, I don't want to harm her anymore. So I'm going to be really careful about turning the hot water on, or, you know this, we all know this, but this is what it comes down to, really.
So do you think that heightened consciousness, that awareness that we have, would equally affect, if we're kind of elevating what we do and our consciousness, would that actually affect the consciousness, the sort of collective consciousness of Gaia?
I think so, yes. Well, put it this way. It doesn't matter what I think. One of the alchemical images I showed you, the one, remember, the photosynthetic molecule, and the 2-winged alchemical being, that's called the rebis. Next to the rebis, there's this strange thing. I don't know if I can share it. Shall I try to share it? There's this strange thing. Let me see if I can find it. Hang on. There's strange thing here next to the where's the rebis? Hang on, let's go down a bit. Sorry about this. This is a problem with, but it's all right. You can see okay, can't you?
Yeah.
Oh God, where is it?
It's just a bit further up.
There.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try and make it large screen. You see this strange business here? Look at that. I mean, what is that? I've been pondering that quite a bit. What on earth? Oh, sorry. I've lost it again. It goes up, go up. There it is. There you see it now. What's this? You see, it's a kind of plant with lots of human faces on it.
Oh, yes.
Now, maybe, and there's a bird here, look, and this is the earth. There's so much in this, but I tend to think this is our influence on the world. So I become like, I don't know if that's the right way of putting it. This happens to me, something like this. I sort of realize what this means. And then this grows out of the earth. In other words, it grows in everybody somehow. If I grow it in myself, it grows in everybody. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, that's how I would like to realize it, as a realization. I mean, I can't say I've semi got it at the moment, but you see what I mean?
No, that's very interesting. Thank you. Really thought provoking. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'm having a wonderful time. This is great.
I'm aware that there are people that have got other things to say, but
you have your timetable.
Yes, we have a timetable, and I just want to say thank you so much, Stephan. We've had such an inspiring, delightful talk from you, and presentation, and answers to our questions. I'm afraid you won't hear loud applause from us because we're on Zoom. But if you make sure you look at us, you'll see us.
Oh, thank you.
You'll see us applauding.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Honestly, thank you. I want to thank you from the depths of my heart, because it's tremendously nourishing to be able to share this with you. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's inspiring for us as well. And now, if everybody wants to unmute, they can say something.
Yes.
It'll be a cacophony, and then we'll